Well, good morning and welcome to ED&A. We will start off our hearings today with House Bill 331, and I will recognize Representative Weber to introduce. Good morning. We don't have those cool 1.5 width chairs like you do in the House. I sat down in one of those yesterday. I'm like, gosh, we'd get 2 people in here.
Oh, there's one in judiciary.
Yes. Oh, is there?
Yeah, someone snaked one.
We have a lot of the bariatric chairs that are helpful for people who need them, and really bewildering when 2 people from a particular agency show up and are going to be a little closer together than they would otherwise be.
Well,
The
floor is yours.
In any case, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name for the record is Lucy Weber. I represent Cheshire 5, the western towns of Walpole and Surrey, and I'm glad to be here today. I'm introducing House Bill 331 relative to the Secretary of State's procedures for enrolled bills. This is not new to you because we sent a similar bill over last year, and the personnel in the Senate has changed significantly since then, so I'm hoping that people will take a fresh look at this. The bill makes no changes to existing procedures and no changes to existing timelines for what happens to a bill after it's enrolled by the House and or by the Senate, whichever is the last chamber to see the bill. The question is that between the time that it's acted on by the second of the 2 chambers and before it arrives on the governor's desk, there are no timelines, and I'm not seeking to change that, but finding where the bill is not particularly easy, and I'm not reflecting at all on the Secretary of State staff because they're very helpful when asked, but it seems to me that the public and others interested in the bill ought to be able to simply go online and see where the bill is. And I started by asking the House clerk if we couldn't simply add the current location to our docketing system, which would make sense because then you'd know. And the answer that I got at that point was no, because it's not in the possession of either the House clerk or the Senate clerk. So the House and Senate General Court docketing system is not an appropriate place to put that. So that left the Secretary of State's office. And what I provided was that either on their existing website, and then I thought, oh, I'm going to get that whole thing about changing an existing website is going to cost many, many, many dollars and is going to be very difficult and take a long time. I thought that this is not information that's in any way confidential or it needs any kind of the careful monitoring that we have for other things. So it could be on a freestanding website with simply a link to the Secretary of State's page. And that's why it's written this way. I want the Secretary of State's office to be able to do it with the least amount of difficulty on their side. But it just seems to me that as an added step in our transparency going forward, we ought to be able to find a way to have that publicly facing from the time that it gets passed by the second body until it arrives on the governor's desk, which then starts a whole new timeline. But I'm not seeking to change the procedure in any way. And with that, I don't think I have anything else to add unless you have questions.
No. Well, thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Senator Altshuler?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Can you hear me? I can't move this thing. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Nice to see you. So a question about putting it on the docket that's available through the General Court website. As the bill moves through the docket, the final action that has been taken by whichever body is the last thing listed on the lineup.
Right.
Why is it inappropriate for either for there to be a line at the bottom after a final action has been taken by either body that says, now sent to governor's office, or enrolled and sent to governor's office, and then leave it at that, because that was an action taken by the bodies. Is it not?
I would be delighted if that could happen.
Yeah.
I have been told that it can't, and I'm not the person with the knowledge as to why it can't.
Okay.
I do know that certainly we enter into those dockets, whether it was signed by the governor or whether it was vetoed by the governor. So those are certainly entries that are made. Now, I do know that when something is signed by is vetoed by the governor, it comes back to the House clerk or the Senate clerk for further action. So I know that in those cases, it at least comes back into the possession of the House. But if that were the way to do it, I would have no difficulty with it. I just, having discussed that with the House clerk, who I don't think is here. He would be the person who would be better suited to answer that. Or you could inquire of the Senate clerk.
Senator Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative, for taking my question. It seems so we use the term, it's in enrolled bills for a whole series of actions.
That's correct.
Legislative services to the governor, back to the Secretary of State in there.
That's correct.
Is it your vision that somebody looking at the website could actually tell where it was in that process? Or that it
Exactly.
just was in enrolled bills?
No, because it gets enrolled by ROLS, then it goes to the House Speaker for signature, and all bills for some reason go to the House Speaker first. And it may stay with the House Speaker for however long the House Speaker deems it expedient to do so. And, you know, there are plenty of good and sufficient and important reasons for doing that. And then after that, it goes to the Senate President for signature. And they too may have reasons for timing or waiting for another bill or good reasons. But what I'm contemplating is that people will know exactly where it is. And this comes out of an issue I had with a bill way back when I was chairing House Executive Departments and Administration, when I had a bill that had to be enacted by July 1st, because it was a matter of licensing of appraisers for commercial transactions. And the House had passed it in January, and then it languished, and we got it all taken care of, but it had not reached the governor's desk as of 2 or 3 days before the deadline. And I went to the Secretary of State's office, and they said, well, it's in the Senate President's office. So I went up to the Senate President's office, and they said, we don't have it. And so I went back to the Secretary of State's office and said, you must come upstairs with me and tell them that they have it. And eventually, a search was made, and it was on a chair under other things, and it was there, and it did get signed, and it was all right. But it is, you know, those things happen. We're all busy people, and I think it's helpful to know exactly where they are, because the people who are cranky about it not being advanced can then speak to whoever the appropriate person is, and those who have good reasons for it not to be advanced quite so quickly can also make their case. But in any case, people know how far it's gotten.
Yeah, one follow-up. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The docket that we see online, is there one person who has the capability to update that, or can that be done from the Senate Clerk's office or the House Speaker's office, or any number of, or is it centralized?
I don't actually know the answer to that. I'm assuming that both the Senate Clerk's office and the House Clerk's office update those regularly because we see, for example, an immediate update whenever the House has taken a roll call vote. That shows up on the docket almost immediately so that you can look up who said what. So there clearly are direct connections, and there's clearly more than one way of accessing it, but I don't know the very specifics.
Further questions from the committee? Senator McGill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Weber, for bringing the bill. This is one of those processes that's been shrouded in mystery for a long time. And thank you for taking my question. You mentioned that either side wishing to advance or perhaps slow walk the bill could make their case. In what forum would you suggest either party make their case?
Well, I think in
during
that
the
case,
process?
thank you for the question. I think in that case, it would be a matter of contacting the office of either the House Speaker or the Senate President, depending on where the bill was, because I don't know of any other more public forum. But it would at least give somebody an idea of where to go if they had concerns in one direction or another.
Further questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank
We'll bring up Aaron Hennessy from the Deputy Secretary of State. Good morning, welcome back. Good to see you again.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Erin Hennessy. I am the Deputy Secretary of State. Our office is the body by law, which does after the bill goes to the enrolling bills process in the OLS, then it comes to our office. It goes to the Enrolled Bills Committee, it goes to the Speaker of the House, it goes to the Senate President, and ultimately to the governor to either sign off or to not sign or to veto. We recognize that this process is a very political process. There may be reasons why one of the legislative body leaders wants to hold on to a bill for longer or shorter. And we do not currently have a tracking mechanism other than a manual tracking mechanism. At any point, if you or a member of the public wishes to know where a bill is in the process, you can walk into our office, ask one of the persons at the front desk area, or you can call our office and find out where it is. If you would like to have us develop an online tracking mechanism, that would need to be an accessible format. We are in the process of making sure that all of our statewide websites are fully accessible, and we would need further clarification on how you would like this done, and there probably will be a fiscal impact to that. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you for your testimony. Do we have questions from the committee? Senator Altshuler. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking my question. So is there anything statutorily that restricts the docket from reflecting where, if it's sitting in enrolled bills or if it's sitting in your office, why would there be any reason we couldn't just add that to the bottom of the docket?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
Speaking statutorily, I am an accountant, not a lawyer, so I would have to get the answer to that. But our office does not have access to the online docket system. That would be, I believe, OLS, the Senate Clerk's office, and the House Clerk's office have access to that.
Follow?
Yeah, may I follow up? So if OLS is managing the docket, right, and final action has been taken by the legislature, and the bill is now sent to your office to start the next journey to the Enrolled Bills Committee, back to the Speaker, all the things. Is there anything that you can think of in your office that would preclude the information saying whatever Senate Bill 0000 has been moved to the Secretary of State's office?
From our office, just
Sure.
other than that, we don't
Yeah, from your
control
office.
the system.
No,
Ac-
but
Yeah. Nope,
Nope.
that would be a political legislative decision.
okay. So the description of the journey would be not in conflict with anything you're doing.
Not that I am aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Anybody else on House Bill 331? All right, I got a pretty tight schedule, and if he's not in the hall right now, I'm gonna have to, there he is. All right. Spectacular entrance. Did you want to testify? All right. We'll bring up Paul Smith from the House Clerk's office. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you all for accommodating me. My apologies. I had the wrong time that was noted to me. So I just wanted to give a little bit of context for this piece of legislation. Several years ago, Representative Weber and I had begun discussing this process because, as you know, during the legislative process, bills can get hung up and people don't know where they are. And the simple fact is that by the time we kind of wrap in June, we wait a while for all of the bills to kind of get done through the enrolling process. And the enrolling process does take a little bit of time with our friends in OLS because they need to make sure that all of the bills are technically correct. That's when we do our enrolled bill amendments in recess a great deal of the time. And we proceed in getting all of the I's dotted and T's crossed, et cetera. But there's a track record in our dockets of what's happening at that time because it's still in legislative possession, meaning that that you know when an amendment was adopted, the date that it was adopted, when it was passed, and we notate those changes on the website. At that point, all of the bills then get delivered to the Secretary of State from the Office of Legislative Services, and then they go into the black hole. And that black hole can sometimes and has taken up to 3 or 4 months. And the public often calls myself or my Senate counterpart, the Senate clerk, and asks, where's this bill? You guys passed it 4 months ago. And the simple fact is that I don't know. And the only way you can find out is if you go to the Secretary of State's office and ask them to pull out their notebook and show you where the bill is. Because there's possession, when a possession of a bill changes, we keep track of that the old-fashioned way. We sign over a bill from, when I bring bills to the Senate clerk signs for them. When she sends me Senate bills, I sign for them. OLS signs for them, and the Secretary of State signs for them. When they bring them back to the presiding officers for their signature, which is required, they likewise have the Senate President's office and the Speaker's office sign for the possession of the bills and bring them back. During the process, the Secretary of State's office keeps a spreadsheet. And I apologize, again, I didn't have time to print that spreadsheet out, but that spreadsheet does keep track of when everything is delivered to the governor. And in my opinion, the simple solution is to post that spreadsheet on the website with when the bill was delivered to the Speaker and the Senate President and to the governor. Because that spreadsheet likewise does show when it is returned to the clerks as well from the Secretary of State's office. So that's kind of the historical gist of this. I missed the Deputy Secretary's testimony, but we did. This is the second biennium in a row that the House passed this unanimously on the consent calendar. And really, it's about transparency. The public is often curious to know what's going on. And this doesn't, in my opinion, put an onerous burden on the presiding officers of either body, in my opinion. I think it simply lets people know that the bill is in the Senate President's office, it's in the Speaker's office, it's in the governor's office. It's very simple. In terms of the capabilities of the Secretary of State's office, the Secretary of State's office over the last several years has increased their technical capabilities quite substantially. I personally, as the person who's responsible for keeping track of the House membership, we have a link right on our website that just says current House makeup. And anytime that changes, it just changed last week because we had a party change, all I simply do is drag a file into a program and it uploads to the website. And I know they have that capability. So that's sort of the impetus for this. There are quite a lot of calls that come in the summertime about these bills and where they are, and people want to know. And this doesn't. Likewise, I don't think it creates a burden in the Senate President's office or the Speaker's office if they're holding a bill. They can hold bills all the time if they're waiting for a bill signing. You all have been in bill signing ceremonies. This doesn't take away any ability to do that. It just simply shows where the bill is.
Well, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Great to see you again. Any questions? Senator Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Clerk Smith, for taking my question. Do you see an impediment to using the existing docket system that's updated regularly with every hearing report, every floor action that's taken, with maybe using that as the place for that information? And the second part of that question is, do you have capacity to do that?
The short answer is it's not in my possession. So I don't, when a bill goes over to the Senate dockets everything that the Senate does. Similarly, when it comes back for House action in terms of adopting an enrolled bill amendment, that's a House action. I don't have control over what the governor does or doesn't do, nor when the secretary. So again, I couldn't keep track because I don't know that information. I don't know when the bill is sent from the Secretary of State to the governor and returned.
Follow up. So for clarification, just your role in that, when you receive it from the Secretary of State's office and when you relinquish it to the Senate Clerk's office, is that something that you could identify in the docket?
I don't have the information, essentially. So what happens is if a bill is signed into law, at some point at some point the Secretary of State sends us the spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet says what day it was signed and what the effective dates are. And then I do put that in the docket if it's a House bill, and the Senate Clerk does the same. If it's vetoed, it's returned eventually to us, and we will docket what the House action is at that point. But again, I don't know, I don't have the information of when it was transmitted to the governor or anything like that is not given to me.
One more follow-up, thank you. Just to clarify, in the black hole portion of enrolled bills, when the Secretary of State's office delivers, this is prior to going to the governor, this is when it's sitting in the House or sitting in the Senate.
Yes.
Is that something that you could note on the docket?
I don't know when that, but that's my point. I don't have information.
But you said you get bills and then you relinquish them to the Senate and they sign off on them. It's a manual.
No,
process.
that's during the normal legislative process early on.
I thought you were talking about
No, because the Secretary of State's office brings them to the Speaker. Once the Enrolled Bills Committee has signed the bill, they bring them to the Speaker, and the Speaker brings them back to the Secretary of State, and then the Secretary of State brings them to the Senate President, and then vice versa.
All right, any further
And
questions?
just to be clear as well, the whole process is sort of it's driven currently on a 10-year-old statute. Before that, this was a memorandum of the enrolling process was a memorandum between the Secretary of State and the leadership of the General Court, because the Constitution actually specifically states that a vetoed message should be returned directly to the House from which it came, not through an intermediary. So there has been a time in the past where I actually sent a letter to the Secretary of State's office because I received notice of a vetoed bill well past the 5 constitutional days. And so my question to the then Secretary of State was, well, should we consider this bill law now because it was not returned to the House in the proper 5 days? So just to be clear, this whole issue of enrolling is one that I think might be deserving of further conversation.
Well, thank you for your testimony. Any further questions? All right, seeing none.
Thank you for your time.
Anybody else on House Bill 331? All right, seeing none, we'll close the hearing. And Representative Roy, we'll bring you up for House Bill 445. Good morning and welcome to Senate ED&A.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Representative Terry Roy from Rockingham, District 32. I'm also the chairman of the Criminal Justice Committee in the House. I bring before you today House Bill 445. House Bill 445 has been a long time coming for me. I've been here, I don't know, getting close to a decade now, and over those years, I've seen the law enforcement community in our state suffer bad year after bad year after bad year with regard to being able to recruit and retain employees. I don't think that there's a municipality in our state that is not suffering as far as staffing, being able to recruit new people and retain them. I think that it's also no secret that we just don't have a lot of money. So usually things of this nature, personnel, come down to money. So we need to look outside the box. And that's what the idea of this bill is to get, if you will, a brain trust of people that know law enforcement inside and out together, and bring also different stakeholders in who might be able to assist. One of the examples I cite in the bill is a type of a class to cruiser idea, where one of the assets we have as a state, in addition to financing, is we own property, we own universities, we have a university. We could use this in a way to possibly, I can envision a thing where someone would work for or sign an agreement to work with a department for a certain number of years and get their tuition for their criminal justice degree waived or something like that through a partnership with UNH. Other states do stuff like this. And it's my belief from talking to different law enforcement authorities that this would actually help bolster their ranks. Another thing, obviously, that needs to be looked at is the retirement system. We are losing law enforcement to every surrounding state due to our retirement system. That's something that needs to be looked at from a long-term type of perspective. It's not anything that can be fixed quickly, but it certainly should be looked at structurally. So I think that this bill is definitely necessary. It doesn't cost us anything, and it could end up helping us quite a bit. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions. But it seems to
Thank you,
be
Representative Roy. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Michael McLaughlin.
I just want to add real quick.
Sure.
A request is going to be made to add to that list of people who would be on the commission, a representative from the State Sheriff's Association and from Corrections. Those were both oversights in not adding them to the people who should be involved in the conversation.
And you support that?
I do, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. McLaughlin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Michael McLaughlin, I'm a lawyer and lobbyist in Concord, and I represent Teamsters Local 633. And I'm here actually to speak about Senator Carson's amendment, which the chairman has said to introduce, but Amendment 1620S. Amendment 1620S does add a representative from the Department of Corrections to 445, as well as a representative from Teamsters Local 633. Teamsters Local 633 has over 32 law enforcement bargaining units in their union membership, and has the inside-out knowledge that was just mentioned of the law enforcement system, which would be a benefit to the committee that's putting together the study. And the corrections officers obviously have the same type of expertise as they work daily in a law enforcement venue. So, as I said before the chairman returned, I'm speaking to the amendment of adding the expertise of the members of Teamsters Local 633, which is over 32 police bargaining units from all areas of the state. And with that, I will end my testimony.
thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the committee? All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Seeing
Chairman.
none? Thank you. Elizabeth Sargent. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Senator Pearl, members of the committee. My name is Elizabeth Sargent. I work for Champaign Capital Group here representing the New Hampshire Sheriff's Association. And we would simply like to add to the commission a representative from the New Hampshire Sheriff's Association. Even quicker than yesterday.
That was. It's New Hampshire Sheriff's Association.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none? John Skipper. Good morning, welcome back.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members of this committee. For the record, my name is John Skipper. I am the Director of New Hampshire Police Standards and Training, and I am here to offer testimony in support of this. I did have the opportunity to speak with one of the sponsors, Representative Roy. Really, the only concern that I had, and I've had the opportunity to speak with Representative Roy on this, was that this bill would in no way water down or circumvent the present certification, training, and regulatory oversight of my agency. He has assured me that that clearly is not part of this effort. With that said, I agree wholeheartedly with Representative Roy's concerns. I think that right now we're not seeing too much of a difficulty with recruitment in so much as the retention is really starting to become the issue here. And again, you know, the idea of getting a bunch of people together to discuss this and help build out a really strong support system to retain police officers in the state of New Hampshire. We really want them to be here for the long haul. Experience is by far the best teacher. And when we lose people who have just a short amount of time and they move on to other endeavors, it creates quite a vacuum in our profession. To that end, I think that this bill, as it's proposed, really will help us put together a group of people that can discuss ways that we can encourage retention of New Hampshire police officers. And I stand ready for any questions.
Well, thank you for your testimony. You heard the amendment that was presented to us, the suggestions. Do you have any objection to adding these other folks to this commission?
I have no objection to the requests for those other folks to be added. I think it's important.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anybody else that wants to testify on 445? Sure, come on up. Good morning, Kurt. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Kurt Ehrenberg with the now Humane World for Animals, formerly Humane Society of the United States. Sorry I didn't sign the paper, but I wanted to ask that the Animal Control Officers Association, a very important group of people in this state, be added to that commission. That's all I wanted to add. I
All right,
appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Any questions?
I missed that, I'm sorry.
Add to the commission a representative from the Animal Control Officers Association of New Hampshire.
Any
Thank you,
further
sir.
questions? Seeing none?
Thank you.
Anybody else? Representative Roy, could I have you come back for 1 second since you're still here? The question I would have for you are you've heard the ask of the committee about adding these other members to the commission. Would you be okay with all of those requests? Turn your mic on.
Oh, sorry. I don't have any specific objection to anyone that's been named. I would ask that the committee just keep in mind how unwieldy these things can get when we start creating these commissions. So I would, I had no objections to anyone who's been listed, but I would look at the overall size and scope of it just to make sure it doesn't get out of hand, so that we can focus on the mission. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Senator McGee with a question?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman Roy, for taking my question. Would you suggest, or do you think there should be some military affiliate group? I noticed one of the duties is to create a partnership with the Department of Defense that would assist service members leaving the military to find immediate employment in law enforcement. So should we have a veterans group, SVAC, National Guard rep, or some other group? I don't see
I
any
think that would be helpful to have
representation.
someone from the adjutant's office,
Adjutant's office,
because they already do a lot of work in an unofficial capacity in that area.
So which group?
The
From
adjutant,
Adjutant's
yeah.
office, okay.
Any further questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you for coming back.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? All right, we're going to close the hearing on House Bill 445. Okay. With that, we will open the hearing on House Bill 598. Representative McGuire, are you here to introduce?
Yes. She's not even on this.
I don't see Rep. Corcoran here. Are you doing the introduction?
Yes, yes, this is, I'm Carol McGuire, Merrimack District 27, and House Bill 598 went through my committee, and we amended it. What it does is create a committee primarily of legislators to look at the data that our agencies are already gathering, look at the formats, and see if there's a way to make it more efficient, or more consistent, or more available. I know just enough about data standards to be dangerous, but the House does contain at least 2 former professors of computer science and a large number of people who made their fortunes in data analysis and computer work. So that's what we decided that they could be usefully used to take a look at it. I mean, the Prescription Drug Affordability Board, for example, was created primarily because the insurance company which had the data didn't make it available to HHS or administrative services in a way that they could use it. That was a problem. There's other cases. I mean, the whole bail reform issue turned out to be that the various police departments and the courts couldn't communicate with each other. So what the commission, it has 4 members of the House and 1 member of the Senate, and it will look at the data that is currently being collected, which is quite a lot, figure out what could be done to improve it, make it more secure, more private, to keep personally identifiable data out. And basically, they want to have access to the agencies that collect the data, look at their formatting and their information, and figure out what could be done to improve the availability and usefulness of the data for everybody, the other agencies, the public, auditors, the whole thing. And we do have people that can do it.
All right, thank you for the testimony. The only question I will ask is, we all know we're going to run into the LOB closing this summer and a lot of improvements that are going to be going on. Do you have any concern about our ability to perform the duties of these studies committees if we're going to have very limited space to use?
That is, in fact, a very interesting question. I suspect that since these are all computer nerds, they'll be perfectly happy working on Zoom or some other online platform. There's also a fair number of assorted conference rooms in various agency buildings around the city, for sure, and the state in general. I've had committee meetings with the Department of Safety and the Department of HHS, and there was one somewhere else in the middle of nowhere. So there are rooms available, and I imagine we'll have some staff busily scurrying around to find them.
All right. Well, I thought the question bore asking.
No, it's legitimate, but I think that for the most part, this particular committee would be perfectly happy to be online.
All right. Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Anybody else that would like to testify on House Bill 598? Seeing none, we will close the hearing. And just like that, we are almost back on schedule. Let's see. Representative Stringham is here. Come on up, and we'll open up the hearing on House Bill 634. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I was hoping this bill would be a relatively easy one for you, but it's not going to be.
That's not a good way to start testimony.
House Bill 634 was written as a bipartisan housekeeping bill to reinvigorate the New Hampshire Council on Autism Spectrum Disorders. This organization had largely stopped functioning during COVID and was trying to get reinvigorated and ran into some problems. The council itself has no cost to the taxpayer. It's a volunteer organization. Its membership consists of 40 members who accumulate information about the autism spectrum disorders and provides educational resources and advice to those with autism. The bill itself, original bill, did a few things. It more tightly defined the purpose of the commission, that makes it more realistic for a volunteer commission to achieve. It allows remote participation for those with disabilities. That's one of the reasons they're having trouble obtaining a quorum for meetings. It expands the membership by 2 members and alters the nominating process for members to avoid vacancies. At the time we submitted the bill, there were 7 openings out of the 40 members, 5 of which are nominated by the governor. So the council had been trying to meet several times in the past year before the bill was introduced, but with so many openings had not achieved quorum. I'm pleased to report that since the bill was introduced, they have been able to meet quorum and have a meeting, at least one. One individual did submit written testimony that the work of the Council on Autism Spectrum Disorders could be performed by the Developmental Services Quality Council. But our view was many people with autism spectrum disorders do not meet the legal definition for disability, so those people would not be represented on the council at all.
Representative, I hate to interrupt you, but the bill we have in front of us is about
Repealing.
Correct.
So-
do you have an amendment you want us to consider?
Yes. So what I would like, and I was just going to say what the House listened to that and decided to amend the bill to repeal the council.
Okay.
And we did not believe that the Developmental Services Quality Council can adequately address autism spectrum disorders. So the amendment that I would, like to become law is the original bill. So if you can amend it back to the original bill, and I'd be happy to send that over to you.
Okay.
And maybe, now that the other testimony you may hear today, along with the fact that they are meeting and active again, would be enough for the House to concur with the Senate position. Is that if that's not done, we might as well just ITL the bill or table it so that the commission is allowed to continue even without the favorable changes that the original bill put in. Is that helpful?
Much more. Thank you.
Would you like me to prepare an amendment to that effect?
Any language you'd like to provide would be greatly appreciated by the committee, and we can certainly consider it as we go forward.
Okay, I can work with OLS. I think it'd be relatively easy because I'll just create an amendment to return it to the original submitted bill.
Okay.
So that's already on there, so.
Senator Reardon has the original bill, so work with Senator Reardon then on developing the language.
Thank you.
that you'd like
I'd
us
be
to
happy
consider.
to do that.
Is there any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Amy Rayum? Did I get the last name right?
Yes, you did.
All right,
I'm not used to speaking on a regular basis.
sure. And it looks you've checked off that you oppose the bill and you'd like us to consider the amendment, so I assume you'd like to discuss
Yes.
that portion of it, all right? Yes, please, turn the mic on. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Introduce yourself.
My name's Amy Rayum, and I live in Derry, New Hampshire. As you just said, and as I believe it's Representative Stringham said, we'd like the bill to be passed as introduced with the modifications. So that makes it easier for the New Hampshire Autism Council to meet and access that council. I just passed out a picture of myself, which is not important, but my son. He's 19 years old and was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder at 4 years old. While I'm reading these statistics and asking questions, I'd love it if you all could think of someone in your mind with autism that you know. I'd find it probably hard to know that if you don't know someone with autism. I'm a mother of 2 boys. One of my sons has autism, and I'm also a board-certified behavior analyst. I've come to speak here twice in my life, and one of those times was to make sure Connor's Law stayed intact, which was ABA therapy, which is one of the best practices for therapy for children with autism. I've worked with children and adults, crazy, with autism for over 25 years now. And I've worked for nonprofits, and I currently work for a school district. So when my son was born in 2005, the autism rate was 1 in 125. When he was diagnosed in 2009, the rate was 1 in 68. The rate now is 1 in 36, with new reporting of 1 in 31 for 8-year-olds across this country. So there's a 1 in 31 is diagnosed with autism right now if you're 8 years old in this country. What they usually do is they scan certain catchment areas across the country. According to the National Council for Severe Autism, 1 in 4 children has profound or severe autism. Obviously, in the 15 years since my son was diagnosed, the autism rate has increased. I believe the term is threefold. I'm not sure. I started attending the Autism Council meetings from 2017 to 2019. At the time, they were quarterly, and they were held either in person or you could dial in. Imagine that. Call the 800 number and listen to what was being discussed. I did that in hopes that I would be able to join the council. At the time, the only way to be on the council was to fill one of the listed positions that Representative Stringham previously discussed and be nominated by the governor. Unfortunately, as he discussed, when COVID occurred, there was no more meeting time. During the COVID years, I desperately tried to call any number or email of the previous committee members, as I needed resources for my family and the families that I serve. But there was no one. I hit a dead end. In 2024, I started to hear about the Autism Council starting to form again. I started to have hope again that someday our state would have one place to direct people to go. We're here today because somebody's attempting to repeal, I believe the word is the original language. A repeal would be detrimental to the progress that has been recently made by Marissa Berg and Carrie Durand. They have persevered this past year to restart the New Hampshire Autism Council. Part of that process is finding those who had previously held those positions, which I'm sure is no small task. I also appreciate their tenacity and professionalism in persevering over this past year, of which I am thankful. I think the most important thing I can talk about is that there are so many people in this state that have great resources and knowledge, but we're looking for a place for that information to funnel through. In my position as a school district employee, I meet so many families that ask, where do I go to get my child's diagnosis? I work with preschoolers. What happens when my son or daughter turns 22? In my case, I'm already involved with Community Crossroads. I'm already in this field. I've already made connections my whole life. But my whole goal is to be able to get those answers for my son and for the people I work with or anybody who finds me. Is there someone in my county, I say in this beautiful but large state, that I can connect with regarding my family's current needs? Which therapy should I choose, speech, OT, or counseling? Just this morning, I got an email from a colleague who lost a family member, and I believe her son is refusing to go to school. He's in the grieving process, he's on the spectrum, and at this moment, I'll look into it, but I don't know where to turn her son to. Just as a reminder, this council says that the council shall provide leadership on training, policy, data collection, and coordination and support and services for individuals with ASD. They're going to collaborate with groups and organizations that focus on quality services, make recommendations on best practice, and provide an online listing of resources for individuals and families. The questions I previously read to you could possibly be answered or referred through this council. I would like to be a member, and I think based on the listings of the goals of this council, I could participate and contribute to any of these designated, I'm losing my vocabulary because I'm shaking a little. I know that because of my 25 years of practice and because of the field I'm in, that I would be able to help in all the areas listed above and be a contributing member of this council, if given the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Yes, Representative Schiller.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
I'm so sorry.
What's that?
I called you Representative Fulcher.
Oh, I used to be a representative. I wore that.
I can't see your name from here, so I wouldn't have known
no
either
worries. No worries. I did both. Thank you. Thank you for taking my question. You did fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Once a year,
Yeah, there you go. Well done.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, check that off your list today. So I'm looking back at the original legislation because that's what we're being asked to consider. And you had attended the meetings for a couple of years prior. And as you can imagine, we've received oodles of communications about this legislation. And from both when the prior as introduced and the amended. And when you were attending the meetings, were you a member at the time?
No.
No. So you were attending as a community member.
Yeah, anybody can
as
go.
A stakeholder.
Yeah, you
Okay.
just can't vote.
Right. So was it your experience that the meetings were well attended? And I ask this because in the original bill that you're asking us to reinstate, the quorum is a half of the membership plus one. And this is a big, big group. Did you experience not being able to meet quorum while you were there in order to take votes and get things moving through? Even as a non-voting member, just your recollection of when you were there.
I remember.
Were they well attended?
I don't think I can answer that. Maybe somebody else can.
Okay,
But
that's
I
fine.
do remember about 12 to 15 people being there, and then people on the phone.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Further questions? Thank you so much for your
All right.
testimony.
Thank you.
Let's see. Speaking. Luis Esposito. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and I think Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Dr. Luis Esposito. I am a former special education teacher. I am also the executive director of ABLE New Hampshire. And for this matter, I am a resident of Brookline, New Hampshire, and a father of a son who has autism spectrum disorders. I'm here to express my strong opposition to the amended version of HB 634. As originally introduced, this bill was a thoughtful and necessary effort to strengthen and modernize the New Hampshire Council on Autism Spectrum Disorders. Just for clarification, I am not on the council. As a doctor of educational leadership who studies autism and identity, I am deeply concerned that this proposed merger overlooks a critical and growing segment of the autism population. Increasingly, individuals in New Hampshire and across all age levels are being diagnosed with autism in ways that do not meet the eligibility criteria for traditional developmental services, both in school and adult services. My own research, a case study on autistic students in higher education nearing graduation, highlighted the vital importance of centering and amplifying autistic voices in shaping the systems and supports that affect their lives. A council like this is an amazing outlet for these voices to be heard. One of these voices is my son. He is a 4th grade student. My son is creative, lovable, and exceptionally smart. He has earned glowing reports from his teachers, and every year he's attended his public school. He does not qualify under IDEA for special education services because he does not need specialized services to achieve academically. However, autism does affect him in many other ways, including socially with his peers and in sensory challenges that he faces everywhere he goes. It's not just at school, it's all throughout his life. Subsequently, he does receive a 504 for basic accommodations that allow him to be more successful. There are many students and adults throughout our state that are similar to him that might not qualify or need services. And this is an outlet for people like him. The original version aimed to increase membership for people like him. And repealing it seems to me very short-sighted. It's an amazing council. I have attended as a public participant as often as I can. However, there has not been many meetings until last month, and I feel like there's a lot of momentum. It's a grassroots movement, and there's a group of people that do want to get this going and make significant changes for our autism community here in New Hampshire. I urge you all to repeal the current version of it and instead institute the amended version. It's to expand this council, and so we could do, they could do work on the issues that our autistic community faces. And I'd happy to accept any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Esposito. Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you very much, and thank you for taking my question and for coming here today. I'm going to ask you the same question as the previous speaker. In your experience going to the meetings, did you find that they were well attended enough to create a quorum so that work could get done?
The last meeting was yes. I have attended meetings in the past about, I want to say 10, 15 years ago, and those were very well attended. I've met connections in those meetings from some of the participants that I still keep in contact with. Prior to my role at Able New Hampshire, I was a special education teacher. I was not able to participate. I was too busy in the classrooms teaching. It was not something I could possibly do. But there has been online attendance, which could not be counted towards quorum. So there was nothing that could get done by the committee members.
I see. Okay.
But I believe that the original version will attempt, and others could speak for it a little bit better than I could, but to attempt online participation for those that can't attend due to disability. And many families and people with autism are not capable or not in the position to drive. If my son was to be sick, I cannot leave. I cannot leave him home. Or if he's having a meltdown or anything like that, it's very challenging for individuals and family members to attend these council meetings, especially on a volunteer basis.
Your follow-up?
Follow-up?
Yep.
So, okay.
I'm back.
You're back.
Welcome back.
Yep. I see you there. I just didn't know we were transitioning right back. All right. With respect to what you just said about, people who are participating in this council, whether they are appointed as members or they are attending as community stakeholders,
Yeah.
Are often family members of people who experience autism, and nighttime meetings or late afternoon meetings
Yeah.
they're a challenge for literally everybody. So in your opinion, having working with Able New Hampshire and running your own meetings,
Yep.
would it be something that would be helpful to the original bill, if we were talking about that specifically, to include an option for remote attendance participation?
It would be significantly helpful.
Okay.
Beyond anything that you can imagine.
Okay.
It's just the logistics of it, having to find accessible housing or accessible locations, and it is very challenging. And to have a consistent Zoom structure for online would, and even the subsequent subcommittees would be very helpful, because some people just can't pick up and go, and especially if it's a statewide council, we have people from all over the state that would want to attend, not just people from Concord or a centralized location.
Sure. Okay. Thank you so much.
Further questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you all for your time.
Isadora Rodriguez? Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. I have two pieces of testimony there for you all, so I won't read it. I'll let you read it at your own time. For the record, my name is Isadora Rodriguez Legendre. I serve as the Executive Director at the New Hampshire Council on Developmental Disabilities. By nature of my position, I hold a seat both on the Autism Spectrum Disorder Council and the New Hampshire Developmental Services Quality Council. I believe that it's really important to have both councils in place, and am opposing the amendment because of that. I've been a Autism Spectrum Disorder member probably since 2017, a little shortly after I started my position at the DD Council. So I'm not going to reiterate what has been said so far, but I am happy to answer questions. We do recommend that the original bill that was submitted in the House would help solve the quorum problems that had been experienced over the last, 5-6 years or so. By adding additional family members and entities that you've heard from already here who are interested in showing up, who are interested in saying their part, we would actually be increasing the likelihood of making quorum, especially if there was the allowance for remote participation for those with a disability. The other piece of testimony I've submitted is from a woman who serves on our council, who has been attending meetings remotely regularly of the Autism Council and is interested in being a member, but because of the process that's currently in place, has not been able to be named as a member, but she continues to show up. And she is an individual who, despite having an autism diagnosis at the age of 12, did not receive developmental services until the age of 48. And that is why it's so important to have an autism-specific council, because people with ASD don't always qualify for supports and services. And I can testify also as a family member of an individual who does not receive services, but still has difficulty with post-secondary education, getting and holding a job, activities of daily living, because of the challenges that they face.
Thank you for your testimony. I've had them open the windows. If that is too noisy and you folks in the back are having a problem here, and we can close them back down, okay? Just, it was getting a little warm. I thought everybody needed a little air. Do we have any questions from the committee? Oh, Senator Alshaw, sorry.
I'm just checking. 25, okay. So,
Turn your mic.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I just ran up and down this twice to make sure I counted correctly, and it looks like it would require, so the council would be 25 members.
Right.
Right. And you'd have to have 8
Right, a third.
in the room.
Right, and
in the room.
half plus one,
Right.
including remote participation with due to disability.
In my reading from where I am, the 1/3 in the room sounds arbitrary. Do you know why? Like, particularly given the challenges of this particular group of people.
Yeah.
I'm looking at like who these people are, and a lot of these people are coming from all over the state and are stakeholders in that they experience autism, or they have a family member who experiences autism, for whom leaving the house or driving at night or being able to get work flexibility is very, very difficult to participate on these commissions. Having recruited for some of these before, I get it. Would it not make sense for this commission to have that a little more flexibility in being able to meet, given the nature of the participants?
100%.
Okay.
We are, however, because we're statutorily, we're subject to 91A requirements.
Sure.
So without kind of a change in 91A or specific language in the bill that would allow for quorum to be met despite 91A requirements, it would be a challenge. However, I have to point out that at least I want to say there are a number of individuals who, at the last meeting, who were attending in person, who made that commitment. And there were several online who, because of their disability, were not able to be in the room. But there are also agencies and entities that should be more local and able to make those meetings. I have to say that historically, right, volunteer councils are sometimes, depending on the leadership in place, that may have conflicting priorities. And of course, the intent has always been to have a family member or individual in leadership at the Autism Council. And so sometimes the folks in leadership don't have the ability to juggle everything that's on their plate. And it becomes difficult to send out reminders and agendas and things that kind of keep the momentum going for these councils. And I think some of that may have happened over the course of the pre-COVID and then over the course of COVID, when kind of everyone had a lot of balls to juggle in the air. And so it became more of a challenge because there wasn't kind of the administrative support to help people, remind people, get the agency seats there, ask people if they needed some sort of transportation assistance, because those are all accommodations that we have made in the past for individuals with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Marissa Berg. Good morning and welcome.
Chairman Pearl and esteemed committee members, my name is Marissa Berg. I live in Goffstown, and I am currently serving as the interim chair of the New Hampshire Council on Autism Spectrum Disorders. I am here today to oppose Amendment 0344H on HB 634, which is a significant variation from the initial bill that we had submitted.
Just for clarification, we don't have that amendment to consider. That was done in the House. What we are considering is the bill as amended, just for clarification.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to abbreviate my initial testimony because you have heard so much from families, and it's a lot more important that you hear from them and hear how important this council is to them and to how their family operates and their loved ones are able to go about their daily lives. So in New Hampshire, more than 50% of current applicants to developmental services have an autism diagnosis. You are also seeing in the news today that there is now a 1 in 31 chance that your child who is born today will have an autism diagnosis at some point in their life. Not all people with autism have an intellectual disability that qualifies them for the Medicaid waiver. As you've also heard earlier, the New Hampshire Developmental Disability Quality Council is specifically exists to support folks who are receiving waiver services. You may have heard received some testimony from others saying that it would make sense to combine the two. And the Quality Council has previously submitted testimony saying that that isn't quite what the role is of the Quality Council. The Autism Council was restarted to help collect data, share information, and educate professionals and everyday citizens about what people with autism rely on to live in their communities. And in November, in order to restart the council, we hosted listening sessions to hear from interested members of the public about what they want the Autism Council to do for them. This is going to be combined with the current legislation to guide the work of the council moving forward. We now meet monthly, with the last month, so March being our first meeting with our full quorum of members. We have currently 8 vacant seats, 7 of which are governor appointments. So the initial bill that was submitted sought to make it a little easier for some parents who were previously unable to have a seat on the council, be able to apply for a seat and be appointed and have their voice heard. We have currently 15 seats filled, and you heard, there's a lot of questions here about what's going to be different this time. And I think Dr. Esposito's comment about grassroots advocacy is something that we are really seeing. Even though we have not met quorum, we've had several meetings where we have had over 30 members of the public attend wanting to be part of this. Unfortunately, because of the way the current legislation is written, we were not able to move forward, but there is a significant demonstrated interest, particularly from families and particularly individuals with autism, which we are hoping to prioritize with this new legislation. And just in closing, by repealing the Autism Council, this bill eliminates the opportunity for people with autism and their families to have a place to advocate for themselves, regardless of Medicaid eligibility. So this is sort of a unique council, and it serves a very important role to not have that barrier. So I will submit my testimony via email to you for reference, and thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your testimony. Do we have any questions? Senator Altshuler.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question about the beginning of your testimony. You had cited a statistic about, and bless you, was it an in-state statistic that said 50% of diagnoses? Like, what was? Could you say that?
Yes. So I also, in addition to my role as interim chair, I am the executive director of Community Support Network. So we represent the 10 area agencies, which is the centralized group of agencies that conduct intake and eligibility assessments. And over 50% right now of applicants to developmental services have an autism diagnosis. That's total. So 50%, less than 50% have every other diagnosis that qualifies them for developmental disability services. At least 50% have autism.
Thank you.
Right, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else that would like to testify on House Bill 634? Seeing none, we will close the hearing. Carol, are you introducing this? All right, we'll open the hearing on House Bill 428 and recognize once again Representative McGuire to introduce. We appreciate the yeoman's work you do on introducing bills for your committee.
Thank you. I try to help you guys out. I'm Carol McGuire again, Merrimack 27. I am both a sponsor of House Bill 428 and worked on it in committee. Representative Alexander extends his regrets. Something came up and he couldn't make it today. Anyway, this is a policy bill that says municipalities cannot change the state building code. That implements the basic provision of a state building code, namely that it's uniform across the state and everybody knows what it is. Over the years since we first adopted a state building code, a number of municipalities have adopted amendments that severely undermine the ability of people to work between one town and the next because they changed a large number of things. And we did fix last year the problem of inconsistent adoption methods and informal adoption methods. But still, you have a patchwork of different types of building codes across the state, which makes it much more difficult for people to do business. So this bill, when it came to my committee, was very straightforward. It just repealed that option. However, we found out from the Building Code Review Board that part of the building code includes things like how to apply for permits and what fees to pay and what has a fee. And that, we think, is and should be controlled by the locality. So we amended the bill to allow that sort of administrative amendment, but not a technical amendment to the code. If you want details on what that includes, Mr. Sherman is here from the Building Code Review Board. He knows much more about the details than I do. But the principle is that we think if we have a state building code, it should be the state building code.
All right, thank you. That appears to be the difference between the bill that we passed earlier in the Senate and
I haven't
this one.
reviewed that in detail. We're having a hearing on it, I think, next week, and we will.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Any questions?
I've got 23 other bills from the Senate that I've
Yes.
got to deal with.
We received a lot from you as well.
Share
we do
and
see
share
there's
alike, you know.
Some duplications, but we'll get that cleaned up. Thank you for your testimony.
Okay.
Phil, we'll have you come up and go through some of the technical aspects. Good morning, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Philip Sherman. I'm the chair of the Building Code Review Board. As you know, this bill was amended by the House to allow for administrative amendments, as Representative McGuire alluded to. This is primarily related to longstanding statutory authority where the municipalities are permitted to deal with the issuance of permits, fee schedules, certificates of occupancies, but also to some degree when you need a permit. A lot of towns want to dovetail the zoning permit and the building permit, so you require them at the same fence height, for instance. So this, and more importantly, I think just the idea that, you know, the city of Manchester and some small town have different offices and different ways that they operate. The amendment also moves some building code related sections that are now in the land use and city grant of power chapters into RSA 155A. This is what's proposed under HB 244, which has been retained in committee, which we think is a good thing. But it was sections that were going to be modified anyway, so we thought this was a good time to move them. We've also, with the amendment, tried to correct some conflicting terminology. The model codes have a long, deep glossary of terms, and the more we can keep the terminology and the other statutes aligned, the easier things are. There was also a cross-referencing error in the current statutes that we grabbed while we were working on this. We also have maintained the current Building Code Review process, Building Code Review Board confirmation process, which would apply to the administrative amendments. So that would be a safety belt to make sure that those amendments stay on track and are behaving the way they ought to. As this will require a rewrite of most of the municipal building code ordinances, the effective date is a couple of years out. The current ordinance confirmation process has been moving forward very, very slowly. Of the 140 some odd municipalities that enforce the building code, 2 have proceeded through that process at this point, to the point that they're done with it. So this is taking much longer than anybody thought it was going to take. And part of this amendment preserves that process because some people are in midstream on that. So that would allow that to play out before they had to basically get rid of their technical amendments under this bill. That could be discussed. So I'm happy to walk the committee through the bill if you would like. I've got my marked up copy here so I can find things. But other than that, I'd answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So you heard the question that I had for Representative McGuire. This bill seems strikingly similar to the one that we passed through earlier, is the,
SB 94?
yeah, I
we're
couldn't
talking
remember the
about?
number, thank you.
So it started at the same place.
Yes.
We're hopeful that this amendment gets carried over to SB 94. The other part to just keep in mind is that SB 94 has the provisions on the fire code side to do a similar kind of thing. So those need to be brought together at some point in the process.
So either the House needs to amend 94 with their, adding their language to ours, or we need to do the same here. Or both.
All of the above, I think.
All of the above. All right. Any questions from the committee? You have, no, okay. All right, thank you, Phil.
Great, thank you.
Brody? Oh, you're not speaking, I'm sorry. Oh, that was quick, thank you. Matt?
Good morning, Chairman, Senators, Congressmen.
That's Matt Guy.
I'm Matt Mayberry, the CEO of the New Hampshire Home Builders Association. SB 94 is the country cousin, and HB 428 is the city cousin, all in the same family of one state, one code. In 94, that we worked on with you folks and with Senator McConkey, who's a home builder member, we picked up the fire codes. But I didn't thoroughly bring forward all the administrative codes. 428 does the administrative codes. I asked the Chairman Sherman, does going up to January of 2027 allow municipalities to adopt the 27 energy code, the 27 building code, or go forward? Because in 94 there is a provision in there that if you're operating under a certain code, you can stay there, you just can't go further. So say Durham, in the 2024 energy code, if they've adopted it prior to that passage, they can keep it, they don't have to repeal it, but they can't go further than the state. So they either wait till the state catches up to them, or it holds. So there's little nuances in each. I am not excited at all about January 2027, but I understand. I'm that guy who wants it done Wednesday, why not on Monday? Perfect. Towns take time. But I also think, though, that that's the town's challenge, not ours. We shouldn't push things up 2 years to give them an opportunity to deal with this. But I understand it, I guess. So that's really all I wanted to say today was we support the intent of both. It covers the fire code, it covers the administrative. Combined, they get us what we want. One state, one code, that's all that really matters to the home builders.
I just realized your mic is not on, my apologies.
I'm so sorry. Wow, big difference.
Yes.
We like both. They both do different things, but it gets down to the one state, one code that we feel is extremely important for our state.
Do you recall what the effective date was in Senate Bill 94?
I bet it was, I can find out. I'd be guessing,
we can
Senator.
look. I just didn't know if you remembered off the top of your head.
I'm going to bet it was probably January 1st, 26.
Okay. Well, we can take a look, and as we look at merging the bills, we can consider that.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions? Senator Altshuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Mr. Mayberry. How are you?
Hello, Senator.
So in discussing 94, and with reference to what you said, that if there's a town that's already ahead of where the state is, they can stay where they are, and they will just hold until the state catches up. Where in this bill is the provision for how the state is going to keep moving forward, and at what pace?
That would be our discussion with the legislature. As we find, we take measure from the Building Code Review Board. We take members from those who are living the experience. Right now, the home builders, for instance, we did a membership-wide conference call on the building codes, and next week we have one on the electrical codes, talking about it, getting feedback, getting data. But there is no mandated schedule of adoption going forward. We'd rather have the conversation with you folks, the legislative bodies, as it comes up.
Paul? Sure.
So some of the friction that we heard in 94 is that there were municipalities who want to go faster and, adopt more current codes than the state, and that the state, in their opinion, was not fast enough. And that, I understand, is where builders were getting heartburn, is that, you go to Durham, it's one thing, you go to Newmarket, it's another thing, you go to Portsmouth, it's a third, head down to Raymond, it's another. And if we don't put in at least some sort of progression, there's a possibility that the state could hamstring itself and get stuck.
Or keep costs down. Because when you look at the 2024 energy codes that Durham has adopted, if we did that statewide, it would cost $76 million of consumer debt upon the heads of homebuyers who are trying to get into the housing market. So I put my trust in 424 individuals to make those policy decisions for our state of New Hampshire versus a 5-member town council or select board who may be more socially driven than policy driven.
Further questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Anybody else that would like to testify on House Bill 428? Representative McGuire? I'll let you come back for a quick, we're running a little bit behind, so I don't generally allow a second bite at the apple, but I'm going to let you.
Thank you,
and I'm gonna
Mr.
let
Chair.
Phil
This
have
is
one, 'cause
something I
think he's
did
gonna
not
answer a
discuss
question.
earlier. It's all of the previous existing municipal amendments to the state building code were made ineffective when we changed the state building code from the 18 to the 21 because we now had a new state building code. All of the municipal amendments were invalidated because they addressed the previous one. So that's for the first answer to your question, and that the municipalities would have had to start over if they wished to implement other changes to the new building code. This overall state building code has, by agreement with the Building Code Review Board and the legislature, intended to adopt a building code that is not cutting edge because there are frequently discrepancies and errors in the latest version, and we'd rather let somebody else find out those errors. So, but we do plan to adopt building codes, or at least review and consider them every 3 years. We just this past year adopted the 2021 code. The Building Code Review Board has started analyzing the 24 codes, and we will be considering them that was in 24, so we'll be considering them in 27.
Thank you.
And the law requires all Building Code Review Board recommendations be ratified by the legislature, so we all get a chance to vote on it. And to regard Senator Altshuler's question about what if you want to go beyond, there is nothing in the state building code that forbids any individual or any homeowner or any person building a facility to go to a newer or stricter version of the building code in any way. That's their choice. What it does is it sets the state level baseline as the minimum code. And that's what the building code should be doing. It's not intended to be aspirational.
Senator Reed?
Thank you. If I can just, the last sentence you just said, an individual can go beyond, a town can't.
Correct.
Thank you.
No, a town can, if, for example, they are building a new town hall or a new school, they can choose to do whatever makes sense as long as it meets the minimum requirements of the building code.
They just can't require everyone in the community who's building to do it.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Phil, did you have anything further, or did she cover it? Real quick. I got to move on to my next bill.
Yeah, as usual, Representative McGuire is 3 steps ahead of me. So she clarified the fact that towns, in fact, currently cannot adopt more up-to-date codes. But the other point I'd like to just make, I don't necessarily drop anchor on the 2027 effective date, but you need to consider that this requires towns to update ordinances, and many towns are locked into town meeting schedules. That's why we extended it, just trying to sort out the 2 processes of confirmation, because towns are gonna get into a knot here. But if you want to force the issue, at least leave them room to deal with it prior to the town meeting and give them that much time. Otherwise, how do they get the ordinance?
My thought was a July 1 of '26 that allows them to cycle through their next town meeting cycle.
They may not like it, but I think it would work.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? All right, we're going to close the hearing on House Bill 428. Rep. Maggiore is here. Come on up, and we'll open the hearing on House Bill 469. Good morning. Welcome to EDNA.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Senators, thank you. It's great to be here. For the record, my name is Jim Maggiore, representative from Rockingham 23, the wonderful town and people of Northampton. And I'm here for House Bill 469, which I was hoping was going to be simple. Noticing a few people who are still behind me, I think we might be having some discussion. So I'm going to keep my comments brief because the subject experts are behind me. But 469 proposes to change the composition of the New Hampshire PDIP to add 1 member of the New Hampshire Municipal Managers Association and remove 1 of the appointed members from the Bankers Association. And I think most importantly, certainly to me, because of my experiences on the select board and being so close to the town, having a member of the Managers Association who is so close to the fiscal responsibility, the fiduciary responsibilities of their town, having that member on the PDIP, I think, would be incredibly valuable and incredibly important. After that, I do think that we're going to probably, again, have some discussion about what happens here, again, recognizing the people behind me. So with that, I think I'll keep quiet, certainly answer any questions, but then refer to the folks behind me.
Thank you for your testimony. I'm going to ask you one.
Yeah.
I have an amendment that I've drafted that would require the essentially the contract to go before the governor and executive council so that it could be approvable, because this is essentially a pretty large contract for the state. Would you have any opposition to that?
No.
All right, thank you. Further questions? Senator Rear.
Thank you. Who are the members of the Municipal Managers Association?
One of them is here, so I think he'll speak to that.
Is that a New Hampshire association?
Yes.
A nationwide association?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Representative McGuire. I just will note Senator Ricciardi did sign in favor, but is not here to speak.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Senators, I'm Carol McGuire, Merrimack 27, and we heard this bill in my committee in the House, and what convinced most of the committee to vote for it is that it was brought to our attention that the bankers are essentially vendors to the PDIP. The banks are hoping to provide services for this investment pool. And therefore, they necessarily have an inherent conflict of interest to some degree. Not all the banks in the state are big enough to make contracts that the PDIP would likely be interested in, but there are plenty. So that's the main reason we decided to cut back the Bankers Association from 2 members to 1. They still have a seat at the table, but it doesn't overweigh the other members of the committee. The Municipal Managers Association came in and presented some very compelling testimony that they're the people that actually work for the most part on town finances, particularly in the larger towns that have them. My town does not have a town manager, for example. Actually, I think 2 of my towns do, but they're the larger ones. And so we thought that that was a suitable replacement for the banker because they are the people that actually work with the investments. They're knowledgeable about finance, and they are on the side of the town. And we felt that the purpose of this pool is to provide safe and high-yielding investments for the municipalities that join it. And we think that's valuable, useful, and we strongly support it.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Seeing none? Thank you. Mike McLaughlin, we'll bring you up.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Mike McLaughlin, I'm a lawyer and lobbyist in Concord. I represent PFM Asset Management as the investment advisor for the Public Deposit Investment Pool, and I signed it as neutral to the bill. What I do have is significant knowledge of how the PDIP operates. I think it's very important to remember why the PDIP was created. It was created for the benefit of smaller cities and towns, other governmental entities that were unable to put together enough funds to get the highest rate of return from other investment financial institutions. That's the sole purpose, to allow these cities and towns, like Loudon, to put money together to get the best return they can get. It was not put together for the benefit of any private industry. The shareholders in the New Hampshire PDIP we have today are looking for the best rate of return because that rate of return has a direct impact on the property taxes. Every nickel and dime that they earn from their shareholder investment in the PDIP goes back to that city and town. There's never been a purpose for the Public Deposit Investment Pool to benefit anybody else except the shareholders. Recently, in 2022, the state looked at the oversight of the Public Deposit Investment Pool as being vested in the New Hampshire Bankers Department, and they looked at that as a direct conflict of interest. They took steps in 2022 to put together a study committee to review it, and they came up with the conclusions. I think I sent some written remarks in that both the financial institutions and the banking department recognized the conflict of interest. The oversight was then transferred to the state treasurer. The advisory council of the PDIP today has a fiduciary duty to the cities and towns who put their money in their trust to return the most return on investment they can. They don't have the option to make a social decision to help the economy or the overall economy of the state. They have an obligation to get back to Sandown the money, the best money that they can give back. And that's it. There's no ultra virus situation where they take that money and give it to other purpose. And we look today at 440 or 469 as to lessen that conflict of interest because as my wife was a banker for 30 years, they're honorable people, but they own a fiduciary duty to their employer. When they sign up to come for Bank of New Hampshire, they owe a duty to Bank of New Hampshire. And when they serve on the PDIP, they have a divided loyalty. The Municipal Managers Association of New Hampshire came forward and said, we would like to be on that board. And as the PDIP has matured, evolved, by taking the oversight away from the banking department, it seemed logical to lessen that inherent conflict of interest by removing at least one of the bankers from the board. Because in a legal sense, that fiduciary duty, if you have two loyalties, you can't complete your fiduciary duty. A second item that I'd like to mention is I have great respect for one of the people behind me, Executive Councilor John Stevens. But there was a mention in the paper the other day of PDIPs in other states that have set-asides, specifically Minnesota. My client runs 3 of the public deposit investment pools in Minnesota, and we discussed that with all the pools over the recent couple of weeks. And there are deposits made in banks in Minnesota, but the Minnesota pools also invest in banks outside of Minnesota. But there is no obligation in any of the pools in Minnesota to send money to a specific designated financial institution. It just doesn't exist. They have the same fiduciary responsibility that our PDIP has to get the best return for the shareholders. It's that simple. You can't go out and looking to say, okay, we've got to favor this industry by taking, instead of 4%, we'll take 3.8. And on $1 million, 25 basis points is a lot of money. So again, the PDIP was set up for one purpose. There have been efforts in the past 2 years to mutate that purpose into some economic engine for the whole state, or other purposes. The sole purpose is return on investment to Loudoun and Concord and Rye and all the other cities and towns who in good faith gave that money. Now, what's driving this, of course, is the success of the PDIP. Suddenly it has $750 million. Why? Because the cities and towns and the governmental entities are getting a great deal. There is nothing, not one sentence or one paragraph that says to the banks, they have the absolute right to go to the PDIP and say, here's our offer of X percent. And if that's the best offer, they get the money. If it's not the best offer, the PDIP advisory board, under their fiduciary responsibility, has to say no. It's that simple. But again, that sole purpose, the rate of return to the cities and towns, and this bill helps mutate a little bit that conflict of interest, which shouldn't exist at all. But then again, it is what it is. And that's exactly why I'm here today, is just to say neutrally, that you can pass the bill if you want. I think it's a good bill, but the PDIP exists for a purpose, and it should remain pure. Again, if you do decide to take less of a return investment, you start to affect the credit rating of the PDIP. And I think in that same article that I was quoted a moment ago, the governor's budget director said, you look for a lesser return, you're going to hit the credit rating. So thank you for taking my testimony, and I'll happily answer any questions I can.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. We appreciate it. Any questions from the committee?
Thank you.
All right, seeing none. All right, Christy Merrill from the bankers.
Good morning, Mr.
Welcome.
Chairman. Thank you. Honorable members of the Senate Executive Departments and Administration Committee. My name is Christy Merrill, and I have the honor of serving as President and CEO of the New Hampshire Bankers Association. We represent 40 member banks who employ roughly 6,000 Granite Staters. And on behalf of our members today, I am here to express our concerns with House Bill 469. As you may have noticed, I wasn't sure actually how to fill out the sign-in sheet, either in support or opposed, so I left it blank. And that was intentional because I want to be clear, we are not opposed to the bill in its entirety. We have no concerns whatsoever with the addition of a member of the New Hampshire Municipal Managers Association. However, we do oppose the removal of a member from New Hampshire Bankers. So just as a reminder for you all, last year, House Bill 1241 was passed, and that required the investment advisor to strive to place PDIP funds in eligible banks in New Hampshire. That is a new change. And because of this new law, it is more important than ever that bankers have representation on that group. They've had a representation since the creation of the PDIP Advisory Committee in 1991, to our knowledge. So why is there a proposal to remove bankers now? Among the reasons why we think it's important to keep bankers on, bankers provide expertise in financial management. They have decades of specialized experience, bless you, in risk management, investment strategy, and fiduciary skills that are effective to oversight of the PDIP. We disagree with the premise that this is a conflict of interest. On the contrary, bankers can provide accountability to ensure that the spirit of the law is upheld to place a portion of taxpayer PDIP funds in banks in New Hampshire. Our banks are deeply invested in New Hampshire's economic health, and keeping banks on the advisory committee helps ensure that the management of public funds remains in step with local interests of communities. Regarding Senator Pearl and Senator Ricciardi's amendment, we have seen that and requiring that it go to the Governor and Council for approval, and we are fully in support. We think it's really important to have additional sunshine and transparency on taxpayer-funded contracts, and that's really in the public's best interests. And this will provide additional statutory clarity, insurance transparency, and fiscal accountability by having it reviewed by the Governor and Executive Council, which is consistent with other state contracts. As you heard today, PDIP manages hundreds of millions of dollars, $750 million most recently. And last year, the investment advisor was paid nearly $1.2 million in management fees, according to their most recent annual report. This is well above the $10,000 threshold that the counselors and the governor typically have to review state contracts. I did want to just comment, there were several comments made by the person who spoke previously regarding the credit rating of the pool and the mandate of the pool and other things like that. I disagree with some of those statements. However, as a respect for your time, what this is really about is the amendment that's been presented and the bill. So I just want to say that I disagree with that. Happy to take questions offline, but just appreciate the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Councilor Stephen, we've been discussing the amendment a little bit. We'll bring you up and see what the Executive Council's thoughts are. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
Committee. My name is John Stephen, Executive Council for District 4 for the record. And I did provide testimony here, but I'm going to just be very brief. I know it's been a long day, but the issue for the Executive Council is to make sure that the contract for the advisor is brought before the council like any other state agency with amounts in excess of $10,000 through our procedure agreements. And there are at least, I think I can speak for most of the council, but at least 4 have written a letter to the state treasurer asking the state treasurer to make sure the next contract for the advisor is brought before the council. And we have asked to change our procedures as well at the council. But this bill is important to make sure that no matter what, it's in state law, and it's the intent of the legislature to make sure that the council oversees state contracts, and especially at this amount. And in the letter I've cited from the state constitution, and I don't need to tell you all how important it is to make sure you have the check and balance and the transparency and the accountability at the council. I've been on the council now for a few months, probably review over 115 to 130 contracts every other week. And there are areas of performance requirements, performance management. There are issues on rates. There are issues that you'll see in a contract about insurance requirements, meeting state requirements. There's a number of questions, and having 5 members of the council to be able to ask questions to represent their district and their taxpayers, like it was envisioned in our constitution, is the right way for New Hampshire. Why this current contract that the treasurer has today, the approximate $1.2 million contract, why that hadn't been brought before the council is unbeknownst to me, that there was not a clear law and a clear issue there. So the reason for this amendment is to make it clear. And so I'm not speaking here on behalf of any of the merits of the bill that came from the House. It's merely the amendment that, on behalf of at least 4 members of our council, and probably the 5th member that I haven't had a chance to talk to yet, would like you to consider supporting. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I thank you for your time and attention to this very important matter.
Thank you, Councilor. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none?
Thank you.
Thank you. Todd Seelig? Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
My comments are brief. I'm Todd Selig. I testify today in favor of HB 469 as a member of the Municipal Management Association of New Hampshire. I also serve as the administrator for the town of Durham, which you were talking about earlier with regard to building codes.
Yes.
My role as Durham Town Administrator qualifies me to be a member of the Municipal Management Association of New Hampshire, also called MMA&H. Members in the MMA&H, to be a member requires employees of municipalities to meet 6 criteria, 2 that require a person to be in effective control of the overall administrative function of the municipality, and those individuals have to exercise significant external responsibility. Members of the MMA&H are key decision makers for cities and towns across the state. We've been following the evolution of the New Hampshire Public Deposit Investment Pool over the years. The recent change in the oversight of the pool from the New Hampshire Banking Department to the State Treasurer has brought the pool in line with similar pools that exist throughout the country. Adding a member of the MMA&H to the pool would represent another good step as part of the pool's evolution. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Senator Reardon with a question.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my question. Can you tell me the difference between the MM&H and the New Hampshire Government Finance Officers Association?
Yes. So the Government Finance Officers Association consists of representatives from the finance departments of towns and cities from across the state. The Municipal Management Association of New Hampshire represents the municipal managers, the town managers, the city managers, the town administrators, even some administrative assistants who exercise significant financial responsibility. We also are a place that assistant managers can become an associate member of to obtain educational experience and training to one day move into a management position. So the managers deal with the daily affairs of the town, including the finances. They oversee the finance departments typically, and are in a unique position to really understand the needs of towns and cities in New Hampshire. So we felt it was appropriate to have representation on the pool where many of our communities invest their funds.
Thank you.
Further questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming over. Bill Greener? Sorry, Griner, all right. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. I appreciate your time. This is an important issue for me. My name is Bill Griner. I am the chairman of the board of Primary Bank and a founder of Primary Bank. We are a community bank that's been in New Hampshire for about 10 years. I want to say, first of all, I'm testifying in support of this measure, and I appreciate the efforts that Councilor Stephen has made on this important topic. I think it's important for understanding, why would there be an interest in banks to have access to some of these funds? Banking is a very simple business, as I've learned over the last 10 years. You take in deposits, you make out loans. It's that simple. New Hampshire community banks, and there are fewer and fewer of us, 2 of our fellow banks have recently been acquired by out-of-state banks, and if history is any lesson, a lot of those resources and deposits will be moved out of state to support their operations that are not here in New Hampshire. Makes it even more critical to have access to deposits. Without deposits, loans aren't made. Loans aren't made, that doesn't help small businesses. As the first individual testified, the shareholders of the PDIP are looking for a rate of return. That's fair. I don't think anybody would suggest that banks would not want to provide a rate of return as well to those funds if they were deposited in New Hampshire community banks. And I would argue that a bigger difference exists. I can guarantee you that 100% of the PDIP funds are invested outside of the state and in some cases outside of this country.
Bill?
Yep.
I've allowed a lot of latitude on testimony, but can we kind of get back to the bill and the discussion of the things that are in there?
Yeah, I think transparency is good. And if I could, Senator, just on one thing to clarify, one thing that was said about
real quick,
the credit rating. I spent 13 years of my life after college in the investment world, 8 years running a hedge fund. I can tell you that there is no impact to the credit rating of PDIP or any of the shareholders in PDIP should those funds not get an exact rate of return. That was a statement that was made before. Credit ratings are simply based on the underlying securities and the credit, nothing to do with rates of return. So I just want to make sure that's clear. But again, I appreciate the transparency and support this bill. And I think there's a lot of good intention here, and New Hampshire would benefit from this.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the committee?
Thank you.
All right, seeing none, thank you. That's all I have on my list. Anybody else wants to testify on 469? I'm really not going to go back. If you got some,
Just as they,
Mike, if you,
happy for the governor and council review.
all right, thank you. Anybody else? All right, with that, I'm going to close the hearing on 469. Well, that completes our bills for today. I have a few minutes. We could exec a couple. I do have an 11:30. If we're in agreement, or you guys want to go into exec and talk about some of these? Yes?
Yeah.
All right. Do we have a motion to go into exec? Yeah, if we can. All in favor?
Aye.
Do we want to do 469 since we still have it open? Is everybody comfortable with where we are on it? Yes. All right. Would you like to hold off execing it to get them answered? All right, we can do that. We will hold off execing 469. Well, you want to talk about them, see if we can answer them right now? Or? Okay, all right, then we'll hold off on 469 for today. Give Senator Reardon a chance to get her questions answered. All right, I gotta pull my sheet out here.
That's my sheet.
We don't know how long Senator McGue is going to be, do we?
Is he introducing a bill?
Yeah, he
Oh,
is. He's got
okay.
2 of them he's doing. I'm sorry? There is copies. So do we have any other bills today? Not clear on what your note is.
No, it was just, those are for me, don't worry about it.
Yeah, all right.
445?
So 445, we could do that one if everyone.
Knock it out?
You okay on 445? All right. Do we have a motion on 445? Was there a, ought to pass? I think we had some amendments. Oh, I'm sorry.
Motion of ought to pass, or I second if someone else did it, so.
Yeah, I'll second the ought to pass.
All right. Now, we had to make some changes on this and add some other members. As I recall, there were
You were
requests.
correct.
Sheriffs and corrections.
And animal control, which still brings us to an odd number. Well, actually, once you add animal control, we're back to an odd number.
Adjutant General,
Yeah, that would,
Oh, missed that one.
We don't need animal.
the,
Yeah, they would do. We need the animal.
from the,
Yes.
I don't think there'd be
Overrides
harm in it.
I-
Are we talking General Nicolaitis, I assume?
Yes.
His office, yes, just making sure I'm clear on who we're adding. I would be fine with it.
All right, so
I don't think there's any problem.
there's a committee amendment.
Committee, all right, we're gonna,
I'm just looking at Kevin.
so
Like,
Senator
here we go.
Altshuler is moving a committee amendment.
Move a committee amendment to add. Just waiting for him to get his pen. There you go.
You ready? Yep. All right.
Okay.
Adjutant General's office.
Is that the correct title? The Adjutant
The
General?
Office of,
Office of the
Kevin will
Adjutant
find
General?
out.
All right,
Kevin's
Office of the
gonna find
Adjutant General. These will be new letters on the end.
so
After-
starting with K.
No, K's already there.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry, K is
J.
the Teamsters.
Oh, no, that's the amendment.
That's
Okay,
the
K is the
amendment, Senator
Teamster.
Scott.
KLM. At,
Correct.
yes, so,
Would this be the amendment that you would want?
yeah, and then we
Yep.
just we'll make this the committee amendment and add, go from here,
So we're gonna
K,
work
L,
off from
M.
Senator Carson's amendment.
So that's an M, actually, because she's already got an L.
M
Oh, I'm sorry.
would be Adjutant General's office, if that's the correct title.
Office of the Adjutant General, I think is, yeah.
You can say, yeah.
All right, then M,
It was M.
N, as in Nancy.
N would be the Sheriff's Association. And then O would be the Animal Control Officer Association.
Wasn't there one more?
That's the
Police
ones I have
standards
listed.
oh, no, he just testified between sheriffs and animal control.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all
So M would be
So-
adjutant general, again, working off from Senator Carson's is the base amendment. All right, so actually K would be the Teamsters, Local 633. L would be the Department of Corrections. M would be the adjutant general. N would be the Sheriff's Association. O would be the Animal Control Officers Association. You all clear on that?
All clear.
All right, so
All right.
Senator
Amendment.
Alshaw was moving
Whatever,
it.
moving committee amendment.
Committee
How's that?
amendment, do we have a second?
Second.
We have multiple seconds, you can choose. Discussion.
Pick your favorite, Kevin.
Discussion on the committee amendment. We will not put Kevin in
We're
that
gonna look at that committee report later,
Yeah,
too.
we'll see that later.
Who is it?
We will not put Kevin in that position. Senator Gannon seconds. I will take that one. All
Yes, we
right.
know.
So it's a
Discussion-
vote on the
His
amendment.
favorite.
Discussion on the amendment.
Okay.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motions for consent?
Well, we gotta vote
pass
on
it.
to amend the bill.
OTPA.
Move on to pass as amended.
Second.
Senator Reardon has moved. Senator Altschiller has seconded. Discussion on the bill as amended. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Senator Gannon moves consent. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Or four.
Any opposed?
five,
And
six. Where was this?
any, Senator Altschiller, you want to take this out since you moved the committee amendment?
Sure, unless Senator Gannon, you're a co-sponsor, do you want it?
Sure.
Senator Gannon.
Yeah,
will
just,
take
I don't
it.
wanna
Good
step on
catch.
toes.
Good catch.
Yep.
All right. All right,
If you want to do the one that we just heard.
the bankers one?
Yeah,
I would like to
let's-
if
let's-
you're there.
Yeah, let's
All
do
right.
it. Yep.
Look, Mike, we're going to exec the bankers one. We decided to. Senator Reardon was okay. All right, so House Bill 469, do we have a motion? Yeah, give you a second to get the file out.
Okay, we've gone so far, so. Seriously.
All right, do we have a motion on 469?
Yeah.
Ought to pass. Oh,
Do we have a second?
second.
All right, Senator Reardon moves, Senator Alshaw seconds. Discussion. I want to offer amendment
Can I have a copy of that?
149, you should have on your desk there.
No.
If not, did that get handed out? It was on my desk, so I thought everybody had it.
I have it.
That's okay, here, I'll share it with you.
Okay.
So what
This
this
is you and
amendment,
Shorty, okay.
yeah, what this amendment does is it, as was discussed by Councilor Stephen and others, it moves this so that that contract has to go through
Okay, yeah.
the oversight of the governor, executive council. Simply because it is a very large contract, and I feel like it's appropriate to do that. So that is what the amendment does. So I will move amendment 1494. Do I have a second?
Where is it going? Oh, it's gonna be
Second.
2. I see.
Yeah.
Are we keeping the same effective date?
Yes. I did not change that in the,
Okay, so it's same effective date. So the effective date now becomes 3.
we assume that it would, yes.
Inserting after section 1 the following and renumbering the original section
To
2.
read as 3, that is correct.
Okay, yep, got, okay, I'm following.
All right. All right, so we have an amendment that is moved and seconded. Do we have further discussion on the amendment? There was a concern raised by the bankers with removing their member. Is everybody comfortable with the bill in doing that?
Could I just raise a suggestion, which
Sure.
is the question that I have? I asked the questions about the Municipal Managers Association and the government finance officers to get an idea of what kind of representation that was. And thank you very much. That was a great addition. I agree with the Bankers Association that they're the community bankers here in the state and really do have a lot of information about that. I would suggest that we put the banker back on, but eliminate the municipal association putting a finance officer on, because it appears we've covered that in 2 other entities. One, a city manager that would obviously be knowledgeable of that area, and a finance person from the thing. So and I'm doing that to maintain the odd number on there.
So your
That was my
suggestion-
thought, and, yeah. So leave D as is, 2 members of the bankers, and eliminate F because we're including H.
And you feel that that would be covered through the Municipal Managers Association?
Absolutely, yeah.
Let me just pause for one moment, because Senator McHugh is back. We are in the middle of voting on a bill.
Oh, do you want me to take off?
Nope, we will absolutely stop.
not called the vote.
We've
We're
not
still
called the vote.
discussing.
So we will stop and discuss if you would like to. I realize it's not a bill, you didn't hear the bill, that's the concern. It's 469, the PDIP bill. I'm going to give you the option, because we are going to vote on it shortly, and I realize you didn't have the opportunity to hear the bill.
Let me step out. Yeah, I didn't.
Okay, that's why I want to offer you that opportunity. We're okay with it if you want to do that. Nope, you're fine.
Okay.
All right, so your suggestion, and you feel that the Municipal Managers Association will cover that? What?
And C, the New Hampshire Government Finance Officers, that's why I asked what the membership of that was. And it is specifically somebody who handles the finances for a city and town, so it seems like a duplication.
A little bit redundant.
Yeah, well, and we want an odd number on this committee, so adding back the banker,
So I'm going to,
eliminating that one.
we're sort of in the middle of the other amendment. I'm willing to change that to a committee amendment if everyone is in agreement with that change.
Yep.
All right, so rather than, Kevin, we're going to base this committee amendment on 1494 that I offered. And we're going to change it to a committee amendment and have the language in Amendment 1494, plus we're going to strike out, is it F?
D, oh, yes,
We are
F,
gonna
and then,
strike out
sorry,
F.
We're going to remove F, and we're going to change
D, back to 2.
Actually, we would, yeah, just put it back to 2.
Back to 2, yep.
In the testimony, I just want to note, in the testimony, they were talking about the Municipal Managers Association.
Yes.
That stays.
Eliminating the HMA.
We are eliminating line F, which is a city finance officer appointed by the NHMA.
Because we already have that in C.
Yeah, H H has the NHMA back in. You see that at the bottom?
Yeah, we keep that.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for trying to catch that, though.
Would anyone be opposed since we are making an impact on the municipal association, if we allow them a moment to make
Not
a
at all.
statement?
Sure.
Brody, I would ask you to come.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it. Sorry, we weren't anticipating such a request. I have to really stress, we are separate from those other 2 municipal organizations. They establish their own stances, they pay for a separate lobbyist, they serve a much different type of, folks who are on the municipal level. I also want to point out that members of the, what's it called? The associations of counties and the school boards association, they also have their business admin who are in those professional organizations too. So it seems like just the municipal associations being singled out, even though they're members, they're members of school districts and they're members of counties who are also members of the New Hampshire Government Finance Officers Association and the others, and the Municipal Managers Association. So, I think the current makeup might make sense, but just singling out the Municipal Association, we represent the 234 towns, and cities throughout the state. Yeah. I think that's all. I think there might be some confusion that it's only, those folks are somehow directly related to it's different. We represent primarily also the governing bodies. So not the managers at those governing bodies or administrators that they hire. So we do have a invested stake in those governing bodies having a perspective on the PDIP board.
Do we have any anyone have any questions regarding that? Thank you, Brody.
Thanks.
Appreciate your input. Well, with that testimony, does that change anyone's opinion on the amendment?
No.
It doesn't. All right. So the amendment that's being,
If there's a differentiation, and the issue then if we left them in, and it then becomes the numbers, because it would be even if we put them back in, you could make H2.
So this is an advisory committee. They don't actually have any adjudicatory ability, I don't believe. I may be mistaken on that. But I believe they're just providing advice to the state treasurer. And I'm seeing heads nodding. Am I correct on that? Okay. I want to make sure I am. So I don't know that there's an issue having an even number on it.
Oh, we don't have to have the odd.
I don't know that we have to. I mean, I generally am a proponent
Right.
of odd numbers so we don't have
Yep,
ties.
Right. Right.
Then-
Well, even
then-
an advisory board takes votes to recommend things, though.
But they could provide a 4-4 vote, and since it's only an
Yeah.
advisory opinion, I don't know that it would.
My solution to the issue that Senator Altshuler raised was, in C, 2 members appointed by the New Hampshire Government Finance Officers Association, one of which is a representative of a city or town.
Okay.
I'm not sure how.
How
if
does
that
that,
would,
how does that?
I'm not sure if that would
affect-
resolve
So
the
so-
issue raised by the municipal association.
So they were worried that their representation is different because the finance officers could come from other groups that are, and this would ensure that the cities and towns were represented, their voice was represented. So unless I misheard what,
I think if we're not on the board, we're not represented, and you're taking away the voices of 234 municipalities across the state.
I think it could get muddy. I think I'd be more comfortable having 8 members than I would making that drastic of a change.
okay, so then that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
So
1, 2, 4.
Did I count wrong?
6, 7.
I did.
9.
Oh, so you're gonna have 9 if you
9.
leave them on.
No, you'd have 10 with them on.
10 of them on?
9 if you take them out.
1, 2, 3,
So
4.
A is 1, 2, 2 and C is
Oh,
4.
I'm sorry, I'm counting the banking as 1. You're right. My
Yeah.
apologies.
4.
Yes, you'd have
6,
10 members. I'm sorry, I
7,
counted wrong the first time.
9, 10.
Do you care?
I'd be
I
more
don't care.
comfortable with 10 members, I think, than making
Let's
that
go.
drastic of a change without having the ability to have
All
some
right.
thorough input.
Okay.
Throw banker back on.
All right, so the amendment will read the content of the original 1494, plus we are changing line D to 2 members, and that's it. We're not striking out F. Correct.
Okay.
All right. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And so the bill as amended, 69 is amended.
Move ought to pass as amended.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move consent.
Any, do we have a second? All in
Second.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
And why don't I take this one out?
Oh, you want to take it?
I probably should.
Got it.
I probably have time to do about one more. I have a bill introduction at 11:30. Could you let Senator McHugh know we're done with that vote?
OTPA for Pearl.
Did you get struck out or no?
No.
No. You're back in. You're back in. You're back in. Everybody's in. Everyone in the pool.
Thank God I did. I had to fight hard against the bill. We don't really care much about the bill at the moment.
We don't hear from our clerk in this every time.
No.
It's like
I
the
don't
third
think
time
so.
we've heard this, and like our clerk never showed up.
I have some thoughts on that.
Okay.
Okay. We're gonna need an amendment. I think we want to allow the opportunity for Senator Reardon to work on an amendment on the autism spectrum disorders.
Okay.
Yes, I was going to ask if we could do that.
428, are we,
428.
no, we need an amendment on that. That's the building code one. We're gonna need to consider merging those 2 bills.
Okay. Amendment.
I don't think there's any more on today's sheet that we can do.
So we did 445, right? We did 445.
Well,
Terry, you're doing an amendment for 634? We just talked about that?
Autism, 634. I will do that.
You're doing that? Okay. It was just mentioned that you were doing it. I didn't know if you had been.
So we're gonna go back to the original bill. I should,
Okay.
I should be clear about that if I'm doing that. 6:34, we heard.
Yeah, we're not execing it because you're gonna do an amendment.
All right, why don't we talk about 330 if you want to?
What? 331?
Yeah.
Oh,
That was the first bill we heard today. We've had this bill in the past. I have real concerns with it.
Oh.
The language as it's presented, I'm not clear on exactly what you're asking the Secretary of State's office to do or how they would get there. And I think if we want this to be successful, we would need a clear path with some money in it in order for them to develop the appropriate area on the website. I understand the whole system is a little complicated. I mean, it's a process, and it's there for a reason. And there are times where it could be a little cumbersome for the public to get information. I recognize and respect that, but the avenues are available, the same avenues that have been for quite a long time. And I'm concerned that if we try and move to putting this online without the proper resources, that it's going to fail the objective of the bill.
I agree, and I think the people that were asking to clarify this, like add it to the docket that's on there, their path isn't as clear as they would like. I also think that the term enrolled bill is undefined. I don't know what the point in that process where you declare that that's an enrolled bill other than OLS has pushed it out to other folks. So I think definitionally, I love the idea of the transparency. Apparently the people who could fix it aren't minding taking the phone calls that they're taking to say where it is, but I agree.
I have had conversations, not this time around, but last year or the year before, whenever we had the other bill, in-depth conversations with the Secretary of State's office, and they are great about answering the questions. They honestly are. They do their best to answer anyone that makes a request. I'm just concerned, again, as I said, we're not going to meet the objective of the original bill with the way this is presented. So I would move ITL.
Second.
Do we have any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We on consent? Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Senator Reardon, would you like a volunteer to take this one out, or would you like me to?
I'll do it.
All right.
I'll do it, Kevin. Thank you.
And I am going to we're going to have to end exec session because I have 11:30 bill introduction. So I will take a motion to come out of exec.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
For the benefit of the committee, I have not put a schedule together yet for next week, but we will intend to exec more of these bills.
Yeah.
I had intended to today, but the hearings ran a little longer than I anticipated, plus my schedule was a little heavily loaded with bill introductions that I didn't expect either. So next Wednesday, we will shoot to do that. And with that, we are adjourned for today.